Hey everybody, what's good?
What's up?
Hey, I'm Laura,
I'm Angela.
and we are both with the Ontario Autism Coalition. I'm the president, and Angela is an active member, and she's joining me tonight because she helped basically in the birthing of this thing, the OAC recommendations report, which we're going to talk about soon. And we're going to talk about a bunch of things tonight. But first, hey, Angela, what are we drinking tonight?
So I was in the store the other day and I saw this wine. It's from a winery in Australia called Banrock Station, which makes some of my favorite wine. Not this one, because I've never tried it.
Oh, okay.
But it's a pink Moscato, and my taste in wine is not very sophisticated. I like it wet.
I like it white cold and in a glass.
And white.
Yeah, pretty much.
I know what I like, but apparently it's not sophisticated.
Okay,
and
cool.
There's nothing more delicious than a pink Moscato, especially if you like cotton candy.
Hey, Jen. Cotton candy?
Let's
I'm
hope.
excited. Okay, let's go.
Should I crack it open?
Yeah, let's go. Here we go. We got our glasses.
And if people don't know, we have a shortage of cork. And that's why we have a lot more twist-off bottles.
Oh, because the trees that they take the cork from are dying.
Yeah, there's actually a shortage.
Is that because of climate change and stuff? Or is that just because of the trees?
I actually don't know the reason. I suspect it's the trend of cork platforms again from the 70s again.
Shoes? Oh, good God. Oh, that was ugly the first time. Oh, thanks. So I'm also rocking my red No Cuts to Education button today. I don't know if it's showing up on your screen backwards, but you know, if Lisa can be cross-ministerial, so can I. Hang on, we have an important things to do. Cheers.
Cheers.
The report's done. All right.
You've done it.
I did.
Do you know where the astronaut is?
No idea, sweet. Okay.
Oh my God, it is so delicious.
Oh, this is going to be a really good live.
If you don't like sweet wine, don't do this. But yeah. I love
it is fantastic. All right, so now that does healthcare go well
with
the cheese?
It's got a slight carbonation.
Yeah, it's bubbly.
I had no idea.
I know. Cheers again.
Oh my God.
This is great. Of course, drinking is not for everybody, and it's not appropriate for everybody, and we would never condone the abuse of alcohol.
No.
However, some people find it helpful and relieving of stress, and we're going to enjoy it responsibly, as should you. Martha, how you doing? Check out my button, Martha. And Karen's here. Holy crap, there's 25 people here, and we haven't really said anything other than what we're drinking.
Wow.
So
imagine when we get into the meat of the report.
Let's get to work. All right, so first of all, let's talk about what's probably at the top of everybody's mind tonight, which is the announcement that there will be a cabinet shuffle tomorrow. So it's official. There's a press release that's gone out. The premier will be making an announcement, and the lieutenant governor will be there. So if the lieutenant governor is there, then that means there's a cabinet shuffle. And I'm going to sneeze.
Bless you.
Oh, sorry.
Bless you again.
Goodness. Anyway, so of course the temptation is to speculate, right? Is Lisa MacLeod going to lose the autism file? Are the leases going to be switched? Is Vic Fideli going to be Minister of Finance, or are they going to bring in somebody else? The rumors are going to swirl really, really hard for the next 24 hours. And I've been in this game long enough to know that all we can do is wait. Like I have no inside information. Nobody, well, some people do, but I don't move in those circles anymore.
No.
So we're just going to have to wait and see. And certainly, you know, if what comes out tomorrow is surprising or shocking or something like that, then we can, well, no, we can't talk about it tomorrow night, but we could do another live in a couple of days and see where we land. But something is going to happen, and I have no idea what that's going to be. But I think we are all hoping for a change and a reset. And we'll see whether the premier's smart enough to give that to us. Although after his comments today in Sudbury, I'm not entirely sure. Oh, geez, Amy. pressure. She's saying our live better be good because she canceled her lash extension appointment for this.
Oh, there we go.
Wait, for our live
For
or for
this?
the cabinet shuffle, Amy?
Wait.
That's weird. I hope. Well, okay. If it's for us, I'm honored.
I mean,
but
yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Bettina's right. Something has to happen. Like literally anything would be better. I'd be happy if my dog Basil was moved into the portfolio. I think that would be a good thing.
I think he would do a better job than McLeod, but that's my personal opinion.
You know, everybody's entitled to their opinions. All right.
Yep, you don't have to share it.
Anyway, the other thing that I wanted to mention before we get into the report is just if you guys haven't heard, if you missed the notification, the OAC is hosting a picnic next Friday, which I believe is a PA day for a lot of our kiddos. Unfortunately for me, it's a mandatory day, so I have to go to work and I can't make it because I have to give out report cards and say goodbye to the grads, and there's like mandatory last day teacher stuff I gotta do.
Well, if you're not there, Laura.
Well, listen. Lots of things can happen without my presence, and I really want to encourage all of the members to, if you're close to that area, and if somebody out there would be kind enough to post the event link right about now, that would be cool. But it's out in Port Perry. We had a picnic at this location.
Petticoat Creek, is that right?
Yeah, that's the one.
Creek.
It's lovely there. It's right by the water. There's a water park. There's a playground. It's just a lovely spot. Clara for minister. Yes, please. Oh man, crap would get done.
Seriously.
Right? Like she'd just be in there and go, okay, look, first of all, your eyeliner's not on point. Secondly, we got work to do. She'd be amazing.
And nobody's canceling eyelash appointments.
No, all three. We were just talking about the impending cabinet shuffle, and somebody suggested that you should be the new minister.
Oh, good God. I just got off with summer break.
She just finished exams, you know.
I mean,
Sure. It would,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice to have somebody who actually knows what they're doing.
That would be refreshing.
That would be good if we
Okay.
actually had somebody that knew what they were doing.
That would be amazing. Oh, Marissa, thank you. You got it. Okay, so there's the
nice.
Facebook event. So go and take a look at that, guys, and please go. Sorry, I phrased that wrong. Please go if you can, right? Our whole motto here at the OAC is you do what you can when you can. If that date doesn't work for you, or if you have every intention and you get up that morning and your kid's just not feeling it, there's no judgment in this organization. You do what you can when you can. We will be having other picnics throughout the summer. My goal is to have 3. Because we've got members all over the province. So I'd like to go out east to Port Perry, out west possibly, again to the place that we went last year, which was, I think, Bronte Creek Provincial Park,
yeah.
and then something up in Barrie. But you know what, guys? Just a word about the trials and tribulations of living in this online environment. It's wonderful, right? We form relationships online and we chat with each other a lot, but nothing takes the place of face-to-face contact. And I really believe, when we're dealing with people who sometimes get upset and emotional online, when we get together, we build community, and we do it in a different way than we do it online. Mm-hmm. And, and also just for our own sort of mental health, we need to get out of the house. We need to see each other, and we need to hang out with people who get it. Yeah. And, this is your family. So try to make it out to an event when you can. And if you want to help organize one, please get in touch. Okay, so enough of that. Holy crap, we have 41 people watching. Let's get to the meat of it. Okay, so we had a baby last night.
Yeah, it was
basically the midwife.
It was. it was a bit of a painful birth, a little bit, but not too bad. The contractions came quickly.
They did. All right. So what we've got here, and you guys can find a copy of the report on the OAC website, and if somebody would be kind enough to post the link in the comments there, you can see it. But this is our detailed recommendations report to the government. It's called Equity and Integrity, a plan to reform the Ontario Autism Program. So these are our recommendations. This is what I'm going to be bringing forward to the advisory panel that starts meeting tomorrow morning. And it really represents, I think it really captures what our members want to see in a new program. And so let's get into the specifics of.
Okay, first I just wanted to mention Faith's comment about the lemon balm. Lemon balm is okay, but this is better.
What if we combined them?
Oh my.
Ooh,
I don't know if I'd stay awake.
I don't know. They get interesting though. Okay, so we did a survey. Let's talk about, well, first of all, let's rewind. Part of why Angela is here is because she's a statistician. How does one get to be a statistician?
Well,
how does that happen?
You study statistics in school. So,
whoa, you just said all of that perfectly. Do you know how everybody at home, try and say that 3 times fast. You study statistics at school.
It's not that hard.
Damn.
Well, it's the alcohol. So my background actually is I have a math degree from U of T in statistics,
cool.
a master's degree. I have an undergrad degree in psychology and zoology.
Neat.
Yeah. And the most interesting part about that for me was actually the labs, doing the experiments.
Okay, cool.
And I like the stats.
Right on.
So that was the most interesting thing for me. So then I decided to go the stats route. And I worked in private industry as like a consultant. And I did okay. Yeah. But I had to travel quite a bit.
Okay.
And then I decided to change my field. And I decided to go to OISE.
Okay.
And I got another master's in what used to be called psychometrics. Then they changed it to measurement and evaluation. So it's like applied stats for education and policy analysis and that kind of stuff. And then I had my baby, and then I never finished my PhD. Because I was planning on going back, but Laura said to me, the saddest thing she ever heard
that I ever heard you say
was because I stopped working 4 years ago now because I couldn't find appropriate support for my son. So I said, you know, I used to be a statistician and now I'm a statistic. And I think Janet McLaughlin made that clear in her report where she noted that parents, especially mothers, either reduce their hours significantly or have to leave the workforce altogether. So I am that statistic. I did her survey. I'm one of those. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of a sad situation. You know, we're not stimulating the economy, being advocates, no matter how professional we might be.
Right. Yeah.
But that's
still haven't got that paycheck, eh? No?
I'm waiting.
Me neither.
I'm waiting. McLeod said the check's in the mail.
Oh, that's what happened. Okay. Anyway. All right. Well, so I stumbled across this fantastic piece of information that Angela is a statistician at around the time that our survey was up and in full gear. And to my delight and immense relief, she offered to help with crunching the data. My original plan was I would take the text of the report and I would screenshot the little graphs that SurveyMonkey gives you, and I would just cut and paste those in. And then she started explaining to me, no, that's not how it's done. No. So you'll notice
they're not pretty.
Well, anyway.
And they're not going to give you other stats. You're not going to be able to do cross tabulations where you can look at a particular question by a certain category. So, you know, we had some people who were parents, like 56% were parents. And then, you know, I forget what the number is. I'd have to look it up. 20 something or 30, around 30 for BCBA / behavior therapist. 28, I was close. So then I could look at, you know, if the answers differed by groups. I could also.
I wouldn't even have known to do that. I would have just put everybody together.
And like SurveyMonkey won't give you averages, so we asked a few things about, you know, diagnoses and other challenges, and I could tell you on average, how many additional diagnoses to autism kids have.
That was interesting. So
Mm-hmm.
so let's get into the data. First of all, let's talk about sample size and why that's important.
Yay me! Thanks,
Yay!
Thanks, babe.
She is amazing. I'm so glad she's here. Basically, the way this works is this is your right brain, this is your left brain. So let's talk about the number of people that responded and why sample size matters when we're collecting data.
So the overall sample size was actually, well, we got a few extra. I downloaded the data at 1,579.
Nice.
When I last checked, it was about 1,585. So we got about 6 surveys since then. Okay. Unfortunately, those 6 surveys are not included in the numbers, but it shouldn't affect the percentages much.
I'm just sitting here going like 6 schmicks. No, but 6 matters. That could be something.
So our membership is at the OAC is roughly 8,000. So you want to have a large enough sample, and it's hard to say whether the 8,000 membership of the OAC is representative of the entire autism community.
I don't assume that it is. My assumption is that the people that have found the OAC are a particular demographic. They're people that have found out about the coalition through a friend, through a doctor, that are comfortable online, that have internet access, that are fluent in English.
Yeah.
And by definition, that means there's a lot of people that
are going to be excluded.
We're leaving out.
Yeah.
You know, I was at a meeting recently. It was a labor organization meeting, and they started by asking the question, okay, everybody take a look around the room, see who you know here, and then ask the question, who's not here? Who's not represented? And that question really changed things for me. So I'm aware, like, we are a large group, but if there's 40,000 people with autism, or it's just children with autism in this province, and we are only 8,000, we're a small subset.
Yeah.
We're a force to be reckoned with.
We're a big subset.
Okay.
We're not a small subset. We are a subset.
Right.
But I would say a big one.
So you were really happy with the sample size that we got.
I was extremely happy.
I was pushing for 2,000.
I mean, 2,000 would have been great.
Yeah.
But when I would have done surveys in private industry, I was lucky to get 1%.
So what does this work out to as a percent?
Or
did you calculate that? But it's more than 1?
It's definitely more than 1.
Oh, what's 1%?
It would be between 15 and 20%, just rough math in my head.
Cool.
Right? Because it's 1,579 out of 8,000.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So
she did math in her head. I'm just going to smile and nod. Okay. So
if you give me a calculator, I'll give you the exact number. But
all right. So we got.
So let me finish. So the reason you want a large sample size is the larger the sample size. I'll use the word that
reliable.
It's kind of reliable is something different, but what you're always aiming for in stats is generalizability.
Okay, I know that word.
So you want to be able to generalize these results,
right?
Because this is called a sample, and the 8,000 member is a population.
Okay.
So you want to have your sample represent your population.
I understood that. All right, cool.
So the bigger the sample size, the more generalizable it is, and the smaller your margin of error.
So you're saying size matters. Pour some more wine. All right. So we got a combination of parents and BCBA behavior therapists, and then other was at 16. Talk to me about what was in that other.
There were some adult autistics.
Nice.
It wasn't a large percentage. There was also some educators, teachers.
Oh, very good.
There were also some other therapists like OT and speech, that kind of thing. But the numbers were small, so I just kind of lumped them all in as other.
Okay, that's fair. All right, and then we got most of our responses from the central region and the east region. Let's talk about the percentage of people from the north and why that's significant. Because one of the things that I want to do, and this is going to sound silly because I'm a city girl from Toronto, but I've really tried to reach out to our friends in the north who have organized fantastic protests up there. I haven't met hardly any of them. I would love to, but I really want to bring their voices to the panel. So the fact that we only have 6% responding from the north, how do I interpret that number? Is that there are fewer people living up there, that fewer people responded to our survey, or is it a bit of both?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, and to tell you the truth, I don't know geography, so I don't actually know the proportion of people that do live in the north. So maybe, actually I should have looked that up, but maybe it's actually representative of how the population in Ontario is spread out, because I think we have just fewer people living in the north.
Right.
It could also very well be that parents in the north aren't, there are fewer that are part of the OAC. Maybe there's less information being funned up.
Yeah.
Especially,
we gotta work on that.
Yeah, especially if they're in rural areas, that kind of thing. So we only had 6% responding from the north. But still,
let's talk about these numbers at the end. If you've got the report on screen, we're at the bottom of page 4.
But I just want to add, but 6% could be significant, because I don't know what the percentage of provider availability is.
That's right. And I really love that you put in on that page the question of, okay, so 6% of our parent caregivers live in the north, but what percentage of services are located in the north? And we know the answer is not enough. We just can't quantify it yet. But
the ministry should have access to DSO.
They should.
But there's also the DFO that we don't know.
Well, yeah. And so we start off in the report talking about, like, what are the numbers that we know and what are the numbers that we don't know. And I think one of the things that's been a real challenge for me about sort of getting into the weeds of policy development is the number of times I've been shocked to find out that the ministry doesn't collect certain pieces of data. Like when we started advocating and we were saying, okay, can you tell us by region how many people take DSO versus DFO? And they were like, we don't know. This was back in like 2007. And we were like, what do you mean you don't know? And they just,
how do you not have that?
Anyway. But I want to end this section with this. What we saw really clearly was that the autism community understands that we need to do better servicing the north and rural areas, and that we need to train more therapists to increase capacity. And I would add into that capacity in the north, in rural areas, more francophones, and we need to talk about Indigenous communities and autism. That's something I would love to dive into. So it's clear that our members know that. So let's get into what they want to see happen. We took some data on diagnosis and who out there is diagnosing kids. Overwhelmingly, the largest number was psychologists, and then after that pediatrician, and after that developmental pediatrician. So that was interesting. By the way, these comments that are coming in are really important. Many people in the north are still on dial-up, right? Like, what does that do to your access to information and to resources? Right, and Carrie's pointing out that in the north, like, word of mouth functions differently,
right?
When your neighbor isn't just,
it's like miles away
next door, they're actually miles away, then
or kilometers, sorry.
Right, it's that. Okay. So we took some data on date of diagnosis and registration and the time that elapsed between the two. Why does that matter? What's the value in getting data on that? This is on page 6 if anyone's following.
Yeah. Well, I thought it would be interesting to look at, to understand how quickly people are registering for service, because it's not always known by parents who have a child newly diagnosed of next steps.
That's right. You get the diagnosis and you're like, okay, good luck.
Yeah, my son, when he was diagnosed about a dozen years ago or so, it was like, your son has autism. Good luck with that. It's like, okay, gee, thank you.
Did you want to give me a pamphlet maybe?
Something.
Yeah.
You know, I was fortunate enough that my background was actually research. So I researched.
Good.
and you know,
you knew to do that.
I knew to do that, but not everybody's going to know to do that.
So what are the numbers telling us about that?
So I would say that most of us, so 62% of us actually registered within a month.
So like right away.
So that's pretty darn good. But you know, about 20%, 25% registered between 3 and 12 months. And we don't actually know all the reasons for that lag. Right. But regardless of the reason, I think providing treatment next steps is going to be a huge benefit.
Right.
At the very least, it's going to help the parent know that there's something out there, that they're not the only ones out there, that there's, you know, there's another group, like even referring them to the OAC.
Do you know what? That we've seen member requests come in where people, when we say, like, how did you hear about the OAC? And my kid got diagnosed last week and the doctor told me about you. When we saw the first couple of requests come in like that, I was flabbergasted.
So we need all the doctors, all the people who diagnose, to provide this information, because there was 13% that waited more than a year.
And that's crucial time, isn't it?
That's more than 1 out of 10. That's a lot of kids.
Yikes. All right. So in our next section, which was called needs-based therapy, sorry, I'm going to put on these awesome glasses that thankfully you brought with you so that I can actually see. We asked members to define what the phrase needs-based meant to them. And there was a really great consensus that emerged about that, this definition of service based on individual need as determined by a clinician, updated over time. And that's a definition that I'm going to take into the room with me tomorrow and really push for. And then
it's just saying going through mourning could be a huge reason.
Oh, very true. Very
there's
true.
A lot of grief for sure.
Yeah, there is. So like one of the key themes that comes out of this survey and out of our report is that our members, to coin a phrase, have been perfectly clear.
Oh my God,
sorry if that was triggering to anybody.
That triggered me. I'm going to pour myself some more.
Me too. Let's go. But our members have been clear. They want age caps gone. They want funding caps gone and category caps. And that's something that I'm going to have my eye on really closely, because that's one of my worries, is that that's the next thing that the government is going to try to do, because it's convenient and easy. If you say level 1 gets X dollars, level 2 gets X dollars, level 3 gets X dollars. Well, that's nice and neat for accountants, but that's not how we live in the real world.
That's not how autism works.
It's not. You can have a level 1 kid with extraordinarily high needs when they go through a period like puberty or high anxiety, aggression, self-injurious behavior, and you can have a level 3 kid with relatively low needs if all of their services are in place. And you can have, I mean, Jesus, I think sometimes I've seen my kids change level on the same day. You go from, like, Clara has times, a lot of times she's, people don't believe that she has autism because she socializes so well. But if you had seen her when she was struggling with her exam this afternoon, you would have been totally clear where she was on the spectrum. The good news is she rebounded like a champ, and she did a thing, and it was difficult, and she did it anyway. So we're celebrating that today. But our members talked about what kind of preference they have for how this system should be organized. And the thing that came out really strong is the belief that autism services should be covered by OHIP. And I kind of kind of want to comment on this, and I kind of don't, because I hate crushing people's dreams. It's really not the business that I'm in. But guys, this is one of those things that if you go to political leaders and say, is that ever going to happen? They just shake their head and say, no, that's never going to happen. And if you go, why? Well, they go, it's complicated. And it has to do with the Canada Health Act, and it has to do with deeming autism services under the Canada Health Act that are supervised by a psychologist. And it's really complicated. But the short answer is I'd be very surprised if we found a politician out there who would be willing to take that on and say, yes, we agree and we should fund it under OHIP. I think when I look at this and I see like the second preference is it's covered under the Ontario Autism Program. And then we also had people give us feedback about the idea of a national autism strategy. And I don't know if it was you I was talking to about this earlier or somebody else, but the theme that really came out of that data for me was that a lot of parents feel like I do. At the end of the day, I don't really give a damn.
Just give us a damn strategy.
Who pays for it? I just want us to not have to go bankrupt because our kid has a disability. And if the federal government wants to swoop in tomorrow and say, okay, we're going to transfer billions of dollars, we're going to do it that way, however it's done, people just want to get it done.
Yeah, and I think for me, the main takeaway from this is, although, almost 60% said they want it covered by OHIP, the key part of that is based solely on clinical need.
Yeah.
The other, third of respondents said they want it covered by OAP based solely on clinical need. What we're saying is like 33 plus 58, it's about 90% of us just say, base it on clinical need.
Yeah. The
money comes from wherever it comes, but base it on clinical need. And I think that was the main takeaway, I think, from that.
For sure. So next we looked at, we asked people if you were handed unlimited money tomorrow, not like that's going to happen, but if you were, what would be the top priority in terms of service? Now, when we were talking about this last week, we realized that we worded the question in a way that was kind of tricky, because we said, what's your top priority? But then we let people choose multiple answers.
I meant to change that to priorities.
Okay. So, but what are the trends that came out of that data?
So, well, overwhelmingly, most parents said they wanted a form of ABA, so 88%. So that's like 9 out of 10 of us that said we want ABA. But about half and half wanted comprehensive, and the other half wanted focused. There were some people that said both, which makes sense over the course of, growing for a child. As they grow, they might go from comprehensive to focused, and speech and OT. So really those are the top 3. We don't want respite. We don't want technology.
Yeah, that came through loud and clear.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, because the data on that actually matches some other recommendations made by other organizations. So by my count right now, there's 3 different reports that have gone into the government that have said clearly what we're going to say, which is that's really cute that you put respite and technology in the OAP. Don't do that. Take that out. Because we already have programs for that. We have special services at home.
But don't lose the special services at home or the ADP. Don't lose those. We still need those. But do not merge them with the OAP. OAP is about treatment.
Yeah, and that was the fear that I had when I saw that respite and technology were being added in. I was like, is this opening the door to saying, okay, so now that those things are covered in the OAP, families with kids with autism are no longer eligible for special services at home. And at the same time, you get a flip result, which is weird, where technically you could say that right now, families that are raising a kid with autism have access to respite funding in 2 places, where people who have other disabilities only have access to respite funding in 1 place. And how the hell is that equitable?
It's not.
So it's not. And what you're going to see, I think, in the next little while is a chorus of people saying, that's it. That's not what we want. There was a question that flew by that I want to get back to. Tangerine's asking, what do you think the level caps would look like if implemented? I have no idea.
Well, I can imagine it would be a lower amount for
Yeah.
lower, what they classify as lower needs,
Yeah.
and a higher amount for medium, and then a little. Oh,
that was our cat.
that was quite the meow.
That's our smallest cat
Oh.
making the biggest noise. That's Minnie.
I haven't even.
That's Minnie.
I haven't seen any. How
Oh.
many cats do you have?
We have 3.
Okay, now I've met all 3.
There you go. So the oh, hello, Clara.
Hi.
Hello.
Dad and I are going out to Shoppers.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Hi, everyone.
Hey,
Hi.
give it up for this kid. She finished her exams. It's awesome.
Yay.
So,
Um,
am I a senior yet?
You were a senior this year. Grade 11?
No,
is-
I mean like senior, like grade 12 senior.
Okay, so now you're a grade 12 senior, but grade 11
Jesus.
and 12 is
See, I can't-
senior.
I don't like that.
Well, everyone's saying hi.
Oh.
Well, yeah, Tangerine, that point's well taken,
Right.
that special services
Bye-bye.
at home is non-existent to newly diagnosed families. Because,
Yeah.
of course, we know that wait list has been frozen, essentially, as well.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that. Or maybe do. I don't know. Okay, let's talk about funding models. So this is on page 8 of the
Mhm.
report, for those of you following along at home. And if you're not, don't worry about it. You can read it later. So we asked families transaction part of all of this to work, because of course we had some people who were using the old direct service model where the money flowed straight to the direct service provider and they looked after everything while inflating the costs and having conflicts of interest and all that kind of stuff. And then there's the DFO model where the government sends you a check, you take that check and you go buy services, you get the invoices, send in all the stuff, wait, tick tock, for the government to pay you back at whatever time. What I was surprised with was how strong support was for a direct billing model,
Yeah.
where parents no longer have to be accountants, and it works. I've always so those of you that know me have probably heard me do this rant before, but I don't understand why dentists have this magical power.
Not all.
Not all of them do,
Mine
but
doesn't.
but most dentists have this magical power where you go in, you get your teeth cleaned, you go out, they press some buttons, they send it off to your insurance provider, and they go, okay, you're good to go, it's covered.
Yeah.
And you walk out the door.
Yeah.
How come we can't have that? Technology exists. So our members told us 52% of them would like to see some kind of direct billing model.
Yeah.
And then 26% said DFO.
Yeah. So I think those who said DFO are probably ones that have already had DFO and understand it.
And want to stay in that.
And it's easier to stay in it.
Yeah. And I think some people aren't comfortable with having the government handle their money.
And I was going to say,
You
some
know.
people are like me, control freak,
Yeah, that's fair.
and want to be in control of every cent.
Yeah.
I would be fine with direct billing, of course.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I would like to see all the transactions that are going
Yeah.
through.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't want it to just be blind. I would want like my service provider to come and say, okay, so here's the invoice for this month. This is how many hours you received. Do you agree that this bill is accurate? Sign here.
Yeah.
But then I would like that to be the end of what I have to do with it. Let me talk next about a result that came back that actually really surprised me. And let me see if it's, yeah, so it's in section E on page 8 under the title, Use Taxpayer Dollars Responsibly. So there's overwhelming support for a standard fee rate card. Not a surprise there. People understand that that's really important to have a consistent $55 an hour rate card. If some of the regional programs had kept their rates in a more reasonable range, then things might have gone differently. But so some of you, okay, we're going to enter some touchy territory here. Okay. A little while ago, oh, here's one of Claire's infamous notes. Oh, Minnie just said, "Awoo."
She did.
Oh, awoo. That means I love you in cats and dog.
And
And
dog.
dog. There you go.
All right, Jill.
Okay. So we asked people, if the government is going to come at us and say, as they will, we have to cut costs, what would you support as a cost-cutting measure? This is on page 9.
Mhm.
And like almost everybody said, yes, standardized rate card. And huge support for providing ABA in schools. Gee,
Shocker.
what a surprise. But the third number that came back floored me, and that was support for a private-public model. And the reason that floored me is that a little while ago, there was some very heated discussion on our page
Yes.
about that. There
saw
were
it.
some people that were working on a private insurance model, and somebody got a hold of the document, and somebody very dramatically leaked it, and then everybody freaked out and went, no, this is terrible. And so this was a sort of a wake-up call for me about, you know, if you listen to the noise on social media, sometimes you have one impression of an issue, but then when we actually took data,
Mhm.
it told a very different story.
Well, you know, if you scream loud, you're going to seem like a lot more voices.
Yeah,
But when you actually speak to the individual voices,
yeah,
that's where you get your information. Like
Yeah.
you know, screaming loud is effective in certain situations.
Yeah.
For all those that scream loud, don't stop. But when you're looking for actual data, we're not looking for screamers. We just want people to give us their
What they
opinions,
think.
what they actually think.
And so what did
And-
our members say about a private public insurance model?
Well, 60% strongly supported and 21% somewhat supported. So the overall support was over 80%. And
I did not see that coming.
that's the majority
Yeah.
of respondents.
So I'm going to do it again. Let me be perfectly clear.
No,
Uh,
stop. I'm gonna have a drink because of that.
Sorry. New drink. Make up your own drinking games at home, boys and girls. It'll be fun. The OAC is not going to take the position that that's a model that we recommend. I know that there is a report that's been put forward that goes into that model in detail.
This is a different one. Yep.
You know, I think at this point the committee is at the brainstorming stage where
This one.
everything is on the table. I really want to see the changes made within the Ontario Autism Program, but I will say I was quite surprised by the numbers that came back at that, and that tells me that, you know, we can't just dismiss an idea because some people were really noisy about it. Whether that means, you know, we are then obligated to go forward and advocate for that, I'm not there. I feel like other people are advocating for that, and their voices will be heard, and so we can say, all right, that's an idea on the table, but here's our ideas, and our ideas are being put forward in the context of the existing program.
And our top two supported cost-saving measures were standardized rate and providing ABA in school. So those were our top two. I think those are the ones I think we stand behind.
Yeah. What else came through as other options? Oh, actually, I kind of like.
I thought I got rid of that.
Oh, this.
Oh no, I didn't. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so the other one, it's a reiteration, which is limit the types of services to be covered to only evidence-based therapy, not respite, not technology. You know, that is a number one message that's been coming through.
Yeah. And let's talk about wait times too, because this data, I remember as we put together the question, I was like, I can't wait to see what these numbers are. And it really surprised me. I knew from just signs that we were seeing at protests where people were writing things like, I'd rather wait. And families were saying in media interviews.
Can I actually talk about this for 1 second?
Sure.
I should have mentioned the least two supported cost. I think this is an important point. The least two supported cost-saving measures were spending caps on age. Well, age was the least. And then hours already received. So that would, you know, mean kind of like a lifetime cap. And
you shall always have 15 hours per week forever. Amen.
Yeah.
No support for that because there's no basis in evidence for that.
There's no
recognize
scientific
it's a stupid
basis
idea.
for that.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, what I also wanted to mention, we got a lot of, we asked also the question, What other cost-saving measures would you suggest?
Yes.
So I didn't recode that because there was about 600 responses, and it would have taken me a couple of days, which I didn't have.
Right.
But I did read through it, and interestingly, we didn't have this as a cost-saving measure, but there was a large amount of people who said regulate.
Yes,
and they see that as a cost-saving measure,
of course,
which we'll get into later. What were some of the other ones? And some people were saying parent training programs.
Yeah.
And other people were saying, and this makes sense, early intervention so that intervention isn't increased as the child ages.
Right.
So those were some of the other responses, which I had some larger numbers behind it that I wanted to mention.
Okay,
but
cool.
I don't have it quantified.
Right. So back to the idea of wait list, because the narrative that Lisa McLeod has created from the very beginning on this is that the 23,000 kids that were, take a drink, languishing on the wait list. Cheers. This is going to get really interesting in about 15 minutes, guys, so stick around.
I have to drive home. So.
Oh, dear. Okay. Oh, well, I don't, so I'll have to finish. Oh, shucks. But we asked families, would you tolerate a wait list? She's created this narrative that, we mustn't have a wait list. I think Canadians understand that when it comes to services, that sometimes some waiting is necessary. That's sort of a Canadian way.
I have to make this reference. So 75% are languishing, but more than 75% of us are okay with a wait list.
That's interesting, isn't it? So, I mean, take all of this in for a second. Yeah.
Thanks, Faith.
Oh, and hey, Louie.
You taught me how to use Uber, too, because I had no idea.
Uber. Oh, now I get it. Okay. I was like, what does Uber have to do with wait lists?
Oh, it was driving home.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. A little time lag there.
That's okay.
More wine. So take this in. So the ministry freezes the wait list last fall, right? We have documentary proof of that, and Louis led the charge on this. So we know that a directive went out to the regional programs to not take anybody new in service. So that drives the wait list up.
Yeah.
Then she says, oh my God, kids are languishing on the wait list. Then money hasn't flowed for the new program until this week. So we've had the Ford-McLeod waitlist is the one that's been created from October to now. And I can't wait to file freedom of information requests on that stuff. It's going to be infuriating to look at. But what came through loud and clear is that, if there's a limited amount of money to spend on this program, then some waiting is acceptable. And people said, roughly 6 months to a year, we can live with that. We look, I mean, some of us back in the day waited 4.5 years.
Yeah.
And the wait times were getting down to only 2 years. I mean, to me, any wait list that's measured in years and not months is problematic. But that's what our members said, that 6 months, 42% were okay with that, and 29% were okay with a year. And I think the folks at the ministry have to really listen to that. Because they're all like, wait list, we have to clear it. Sure, we'd love to clear it. But
first of all, we can't. We don't even have the capacity to.
Well, there's that.
So what are they going to clear them to where? Where are they?
Well, they're going to push all this money out the door, and then, and if you're in Northern Ontario, you have nowhere to go anyway.
So now they're on a wait list for service, not funding.
Yeah.
I remember, so last year.
Oh, that's a good point.
So last year, so my son was picked up by the OAP last year, the new COTO plan. I was thrilled. And I say this joke sometimes. I felt like Pretty Woman because I had all this money and I had nowhere to spend it.
Oh, no.
Because the provider I wanted didn't have the staff. I had to wait. And they knew me. They knew my son because he was going there for just a couple hours a week. But now we could do, I mean, he's only 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
But now we could do 10. But we had to continue doing like those 2 hours a week for about 6 months until she was able to ramp up the program.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I have this money and they're going to take it back. And they did.
Right?
And they did.
That's another thing. Like that's a systemic thing that happens.
Are you sure?
Oh, I hope so. I'm sorry. Oh dear. But yeah, you get sometimes this March Madness phenomenon that happens where like the fiscal year ends in March. And so, sometimes you get funding and you're told, okay, use it or lose it. And so, you see these agencies go on spending sprees in March. I mean, a simple cost saving measure that could be implemented, and I heard somebody smart talk about this recently, is like end that. Allow people to carry that budget forward into the next year.
Yes.
If it means they're using less in the long run, why would you not do that? So that strikes me as a really intelligent idea. So let's go on and talk about, okay, we covered this part already, that the OAP should be a therapy program, not a respite or technology program.
And 3/4 of us believe therapy only. 3/4 seems to be a theme.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just go back in the comments here. Oh wow, a whole bunch just flew by. Faith's point is well taken. As long as the block of service that you get at the end of the waiting is actually needs-based. And that, I mean, we heard that, right, at the protests. I'll wait if it's needs-based.
I waited 2 years for what they termed IBI for my son, and it was acceptable to me because I had a frame that it was going to be 2 years. I was told it was roughly 2 years. Yeah. And I knew that the end of those 2 years, I was going to get needs-based programming.
It's worth waiting for.
So I waited, and I felt it was, something that I do.
Tangerine's point is so poignant, that when you finally do get funding, you go through that guilt of like, oh, okay, so I've got funding, so now who's not getting it? Or am I getting it sooner than families who have been waiting longer? And this is what, when a system is not administered well, then you have a system that pits people against each other and sets up these false conflicts of like, okay, so I'm fighting you for funding. Well, no, we're both fighting them for funding, and that's the way that it should be. Some good comments there about private insurance. I'll see if I can find the plan that's been written about private insurance and get permission to share it in the group if people want to take a look at it. Kenzie,
there's one available online.
Yes.
If it's online, it's public.
Right, it's Scott Corbett's. Right?
I thought it was, it was Corbett. Yeah. Yeah, I get insurance? Or was it Moffat?
No.
It was Corbett. It was Corbett. Yeah. Okay.
And then Kenzie's saying, the government forgets the land north of Barrie and Orillia. Honestly, I think sometimes they forget the land north of Steeles in Toronto.
Yes, thank you. Therapy only.
Yes, absolutely.
It's in the questionnaire. It's asked in different ways multiple times.
Yes,
and that your data is reliable.
That's why we ask it so many times.
When do you see the same results coming out, even if the question is worded differently?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're on page 10 now, and we asked families about what services should be included in the OAP. Respite and technology came in dead last. Physical therapy towards the end. But again, we see, and again, asked a different way, overwhelming support for ABA, whether that's comprehensive or intensive ABA or focused ABA, defined as less than 20 hours a week. Strong support for social skills programs, 79% strongly say that it's very important. Speech language therapy, 70% say very important. Psychology at 56. I think that has to do with assessments.
Slightly higher than OT.
Yeah, a little bit higher than OT by 2%. And then counseling and social work. And I think that really ties in with Janet McLaughlin's study about family stress.
Yeah.
And
there's a mental health aspect that's not
for the whole family.
Addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so on to page 11. We make solid recommendations here about the need for regulation. This is probably the piece that causes me the most frustration, because we've literally been advocating for regulation since 2007.
Yes.
And like, there's gray hairs here that are named, meetings where I have raised the issue of regulation. I dyed them last week, but I know they're there. And this is where I think the OAC and ONTABA really come close together in terms of our positions. We've looked at their reports, and they've put forward a model for regulation that I think could really work. The government has hinted, hasn't hinted, they have committed to regulation. But in a meeting that I had with senior staffers in the minister's office, they said, well, it's probably not going to be a model that ONTABA likes, whatever that means.
You ask them.
I don't know, but.
Or maybe just bully them to do it. Sorry, I didn't say that.
Oh.
I didn't say that.
What? I didn't hear anything. Anyway, so we've also made some recommendations about, simple things to do that can limit costs, like, you set a trigger value. So if a behavior plan goes in for $120,000 a year, you go, hey, wait a second. How many, if somebody's saying, the clinical needs of the child are 60 hours a week of ABA, somebody's got to be taking a second look at that.
That was actually another thing that people said in the other cost savings measure, and that was QA, quality assurance. That there, some people were saying, just have some sort of quality assurance. Some people are saying have another body to do audits, but it's kind of a general idea that there needs to be that oversight.
Yeah. All right, guys, fasten your seatbelts because we're going to talk about.
But I think maybe mention the percentages.
Oh yeah, let's
so
give those
in terms
numbers.
of supporting regulation, as a population of the respondents, we said 93% either strongly or somewhat support. And so remember I said earlier I think it was 28% of the respondents were BCBA / behavior therapists. That actually increased to about 95% when I looked at that question just for them.
That makes sense.
So the support is actually, it's super high. You can't get much higher than 93 anyway, but it's even slightly higher with behavior therapists.
Which makes sense. People in the profession know the need for regulation and know the benefits that come from having professionals that are bound by, there already is an ethical code of practice, but to have, actual consequences available if somebody violates those,
if
that's
we
important.
need a college that, like any other health professional.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. All right, so fasten your seatbelts. Let's talk about school. So we have a whole bunch of recommendations here on page 12 and 13 about education, some of which reflect data that we took in the survey, some of which actually just come out of our own research on the leadership team of the OAC. But let's talk first about what the members want. Talk about this graph on page 13. What is that telling us that people want for their students?
Overwhelmingly, pretty much all of us said we need to provide teachers and EAs with better training in autism, and that's a given.
Yeah.
We need to provide more EAs in school.
Yeah. 94%.
94% for each of those. And
Laura Walton, if you're listening, take that number back. 94% of our members
and
want
another
more
94%
EAs.
to provide more specialized programs within the public school system that focuses on autism and kids with special needs.
Yeah.
And simply 9 out of 10 of us just say provide ABA in schools.
Yeah.
Just
do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
To go back, we have PPM 140, and I'm not gonna focus on it, but it's a thing, damn it.
It is a thing, but like too many, so PPM is a policy and procedure manual. It's basically a directive that goes out from a ministry, in this case the Ministry of Education, to school boards saying thou shalt. But the difficulty with PPM 140 is that it contains wiggle words like should or may. And
there's words that are open to interpretation.
Absolutely. And so that's why we have heroes like Beth Skirt fighting through the Human Rights Tribunal for actual ABA in the classroom, not ABA light.
Or ABA methods. I've
Right.
heard that term.
Yeah, that's like a needs-based component in my mind, equally useless. I don't want a needs-based component. I want a program that is needs-based.
Yes.
With BCBA oversight. And we didn't take data on that. But you know what's interesting is there's a couple of things here that I can extrapolate. Like when our members say we want ABA in schools, I know that they also mean with the supervision of BCBAs. Nobody's saying just go train education assistants with the 40-hour program and then leave them alone to do it.
Yeah.
No. You have to have the supervisors in there. You have to have data collection. You have to have regular
It's not
reevaluation.
ABA without data collection.
Yeah.
It's
Funny.
not.
I've become a little obsessed with data lately, both in my teaching practice, when I talk to my students about, evaluating civic issues and which evidence they believe in and which ones they don't, the importance of evidence, all the work that we're doing here on this about the evidence. But then there's a few times where I look at this and I go, you know what, I see these numbers, but I can also read between the lines here. So when what is it, 94% of our members say, 94% say provide teachers and EAs with better training in autism. I'm pretty sure that I know that they understand that this one-day program that the government announced
is not
that.
what we're saying.
That's one day is not that.
No, and we're saying with better training in autism. We're saying better.
Yeah. So better is more than one day. But one of the things that, and we say this in our recommendations, I mean, okay, one day is abysmal, but if you're going to do one day, then for God's sake, please let the education assistants also take that training. Why would you make it available to classroom teachers and not EAs? Because I can tell you what the staff room meeting is going to look like when the training session happens. Because, oh God, guys, like teachers at professional development sessions, we're a tough crowd. Like, you think stand-up comedy is bad. Because we're sitting there and we're like, okay, I need to be marking. I need to be calling parents. I need to be prepping lessons. I need to be filing. I need to be doing 18,000 things. And you're here to professionally develop me. You better be good to earn my attention.
Yeah.
Because, we know what it's like to fight for attention in the classroom. So my fear is with these one-day sessions that you're going to get a lot of resistance from teachers who, and you know what, sometimes I'm one of them, who look at all of the things that are being piled onto teachers saying, okay, so you need to know how to use an EpiPen, you need to know about concussion protocol, you need to know about students with special needs, you need to be aware of mental health triggers, and now you also have to be an expert in autism. And the danger with a one-off PD session like that is that you're going to get people just folding their arms and going, nope, I'm not doing this. Meanwhile, the people who really would bang the doors down to get into that session are the education assistants. And we still don't have a firm answer about whether or not they're going to be able to access this training. It's ridiculous. So other stuff that we said that is not related to the data, but guys, tell me what you think of this, because I just decided, based on, so you guys, some of you will remember that we released an education report back in 2017. And most of our positions are still the same. A few have evolved. But as you know, there's been a lot of discussion this year about the use of exclusion as a way of pushing students with autism out of the classroom if their behaviors are challenging. And then there's also been, across the country, discussion about seclusion rooms and restraint. And I think this is actually an area where our community can come together with autistic self-advocates, even those who take an anti-ABA position, and say, you know what, regardless of where you stand on ABA, excluding kids because they have a disability is wrong, and it's a violation of human rights.
Yes.
Secluding kids and locking them in rooms is just morally wrong. And physically restraining kids is really problematic, so maybe you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So we come out pretty hard.
That's just downright assault.
So we come out pretty hard saying those things are not okay. We need to be training in what's called positive behavioral supports and conflict de-escalation. But the other thing too is, the old saying, kids behave well when they can. When they have the supports in the classroom that they need, then you're not going to have as many meltdowns. I think we all accept that you're going to have some because autism.
Yeah.
You know what? Some days there is no, you try to do you go through this with your kids? I do all the time. You try to do the antecedent behavior consequence and you're just like, I have no idea.
Clue. I
what
have
the
no clue.
antecedent
Yes,
is.
I have done that. I'm like, I don't know.
Sometimes I file
What is
meltdowns under shit happens, right? So there's like, that one was environmental, that one was sensory, that one was that one was just a shit happens meltdown.
Yeah, sometimes I just chalk it up to bad days.
Yeah. And when you think about it, like neurotypicals are like that too, right?
I have bad days.
Me too. So anyhow, those are some of the key recommendations we're making on education. We're recommending that EAs receive the full RBT training in ABA. And what's interesting there is that in the work that I've done meeting with labor leaders, it's clear that that's training that education assistants want. They understand the importance of getting that training, first and foremost to benefit the kid, but also to help them as workers stay safer. I think one of the messages that's really getting through both across the parent and the educator community is, and I see this because I'm on both sides of the desks, my kids' learning conditions are someone else's working conditions.
Yes.
And you can't separate them out. We can't talk about workplace violence and not talk about lack of supports for kids.
Absolutely.
There's a causal relationship there. So we're coming out pretty strong on that and endorsing some things from the Ontario Human Rights Commission and Arch Disability Law and other work that we've already done on the issue of exclusion. And by the way, we're not done with that issue. There's more collaboration happening between us and the AODA Alliance, and stay tuned on that. So let's just scroll back in the comments and see if I missed anything. Yes, why we need BCBAs. Oh, our teacher fought for a sensory room and won. There should be a sensory room. So yeah, I'm glad you raised that point. That's Jessie Sharon Higgs. So there's, to me, and I think to most people, there's a big difference between a seclusion room and a sensory room. A sensory room becomes a seclusion room if you lock the door and tell the kid they can't come out.
A sensory room becomes a seclusion room when they go into that room not of their own will.
Yeah. And so I think there's broad support in the community for sensory rooms, and when they exist and when they're good, positive spaces, then kids start to learn how to self-regulate. And when they feel themselves starting to come undone, they're like, I know that I need to go there. But is it ever okay to physically restrain a kid and drag them there and then lock the door? Hell no.
Never.
We are not about that.
Never.
Beth, what are you saying here? QBS? What is that?
I don't know what that means.
Quality. No, I don't know what that is. QBS. Please explain.
Yeah, clarify.
All right, we are almost done, guys, which is good because I have to go to bed soon. But since the minister has committed to doing this whole interministerial collaboration thing, we've made recommendations that are relevant to the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services. Also to education. What, are we missing some graphs?
I'm missing a whole page.
Uh-oh. Is it, hang on. Is it this one?
Yes.
Okay, I got you.
I don't know.
It's okay.
I hope it's not missing in the PDF. Hopefully I just lost it when I stapled it.
Maybe it's the wine hitting, but I am losing my ability to read.
We are also a country that has more poor weather during the school year than not. Kids aren't playing hard to reset.
Playing hard at recess?
Oh, to reset. Like.
Right. They're not getting all that energy burnt off by going outside.
I know my son, for example, can focus so much better after physical activity.
Of course, absolutely. It's, one thing that frustrates me all the time as a teacher is that we don't let our kids outside when it's minus 15. Or lower, and that's reasonable. But we never close the schools because of heat. It could be like
Right?
40 degrees in a classroom.
Which one's more dangerous? I think they're about
I,
equal.
you know? Anyway, off topic. Okay, so last section, we made recommendations about healthcare.
Mhm.
And it was really tempting to go into all sorts of detail on this, but in the end, we decided to sort of keep our recommendations pretty broad. One easy thing to recommend was that every family doctor should get a copy of basically an early screening tool to assess risk for ASD, because so many doctors tell parents, often moms, oh, you're worried about nothing. There's nothing wrong. Boys are always late to talk.
Yeah.
You're worrying, whatever. But if they actually had a copy of what's called the MCHAT, they could screen for risk, and then if risk factors are identified, then refer for a more comprehensive assessment.
Yeah.
Then we talked a little bit about hospitals, and I found a statistic that was really, really alarming, and this is from a study by Dr. Yona Lunsky at CAMH and Dr. Jonathan Weiss at York, who found that of the 22% of individuals who went with autism who went to the emergency department at least once in a year, 23% of those were sedated or restrained. That is absolutely shocking. Of course, we know emergency rooms are really difficult environments for our kids. It's sensory overload, and it's the worst possible thing. If you go there, you're probably already in pain. You're going to have to wait, and for our kids that love structure, we don't know how long you're going to wait.
Oh, God.
And often we go when there's a crisis, so we haven't brought the toys, the distractors, and even if we have, we run out. And so often our kids' underlying medical issues get lost because the behavior issues are making so much noise.
Yes.
And so then you get sedation and restraint, and you get return visits, and there's a whole body of research that's been done about this that's really disturbing. This is where, for me, the report got kind of personal. And to those of you that reached out to me on my own Facebook page in the last couple of days, I was posting about how bad my anxiety has been.
Mm.
And I finally put it together. And I realized that in the process of putting together this report, I was reliving some of the most painful moments of our family's experience. And a lot of those painful moments happened in hospitals.
Yes, companies.
Oh, okay. I will check that link out.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this is resonating with some of you that you've had your kids restrained at hospitals. So one of the things that Cliff actually identified that is desperately needed is somewhere to go in a crisis. When a person with autism experiences autistic burnout, where the meltdowns are just happening one after another, they're out of control, they know they're out of control, and then you get the caregiver burnout on top of that. And literally, I remember at times showing up and wanting to just check the whole family into a mental health unit. Like, mom and dad got issues, siblings got the issues, kid over here has issues. Like, we just need to shut down for a couple of days and hit reset. There is nowhere to go for that. And so that's a recommendation that we've made. We know that in most cases, a hospital visit that's due to behavioral issues like aggression or repeated meltdowns, often the attempt is to push the family out the door as fast as possible. Like, we had the experience once where somebody said, okay, take him off all of his medications and put him on this. And I was like, okay, doctor, that's great. Could he stay at your house while that transition's going on? And he was like, absolutely not. I'm like, why the hell do you think it's okay for us to go home? But whatever. But sometimes when that crisis level hits and the family is literally saying, okay, we're not safe in our own house, and there's no housing supports, there's no group homes or respite centers to go to, hospitals sometimes become the housing of last resort. And one of our co-founders experienced this with both of her kids, where they went into hospital and they stayed for months.
Wow.
Close to
and
a year.
And you know how much that costs?
About $2,000 a day, minimum.
Yeah.
Right? And you have situations where, if you're going with a teen or an adolescent, sorry, that's the same thing. If you're going with an adolescent to a hospital, Sometimes they get put on the adult psychiatric unit. Well, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
We had a situation once where we were trying to get, actually I shouldn't disclose that, but sometimes there's a refusal to put a kid on a child and adolescent mental health unit because they have autism. And autism is not mental health, or is it? And that distinction gets really blurry, and that's something that we should probably do a whole Facebook Live about with Louis someday. But the need for broader mental health support is overwhelming, and this is where that last big piece of data comes in on page 15. So let's talk about that. We asked families, we know that the caregivers experience burnout, but what about our kiddos? What are the other conditions that they're living with besides autism?
Well, what we found overwhelmingly, over 60% also have speech and language disorders, which is not uncommon for kids with autism. It's kind of part of what it is.
Yeah.
But then about half have sensory processing disorder and anxiety.
Look at that, 48%.
Yeah. So, that's where the mental health supports need to come in. There's over 1/3 that have sleep disturbances.
That actually surprised me. I thought it would be more than that. I feel like so few of our kids sleep well. That it was only 35% actually kind of surprised.
Actually.
Yeah?
Well, now.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit of hope out there to you. Cliff and Clara sleep in on the weekend like nobody's business. It's awesome.
I can't get my son up on the weekdays, but on the weekends, for some reason, that's when he wakes up early. It drives me up the wall.
That's rude.
Rude, right?
Yeah, disrespectful.
I keep telling him.
Anyway.
And this is actually very close to my heart. 35% have limited food intake.
Yeah.
So, and this is one of those things. We went to feeding clinics when my son was little because he was basically starving himself. And they're telling me, well, just feed him. And I'm
feed him.
I wouldn't be here if I could.
What kind of advice is that?
Right? From a feeding expert, specialist. He's dead now. So, not that I'm happy about that or anything. And then I tried to get him into Holland Bloorview, and they wouldn't take him because he doesn't have a physical disability. So their clinic. Then I tried to go to Sick Kids, and they said they wouldn't take him because he has autism. And, then I kept taking him from doctor to doctor, and they're like, well, there's nothing wrong with him. It's just the autism.
That gets used a lot, right?
It's just
so many times.
So these underlying health conditions, they just get completely ignored because, well, that's just autism. But it's not. So I eventually did push, and I did get an eating disorder diagnosis for him.
Okay.
And he's doing much better now.
Okay.
But
did the diagnosis help you access services that were blocked for you before? Okay.
It did. I can tell you the whole story. I won't tell you now.
Another topic.
But it did. And things like elopement, learning disabilities, GI disorders, gastrointestinal disorders.
26%.
So 1/4 of the kids, and you take a kid with autism to the hospital who might be having GI distress, and the doctor's going to see the behavior. Yeah. They're not even going to bother looking at.
Well, they're going to ask themselves, how the hell am I going to do an ultrasound or or anything like that?
And about 1/4 have an intellectual disability. And then there's aggression, self-harm, PICA. And then, under 10%, there's depression, ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. 6% have seizures, and then, 3 and 2%, there's physical disability and hearing loss and vision loss. So, our kids don't just have autism. And the thing I found out, actually, which was interesting, I looked at the average number of additional diagnoses or challenges that our kids have, and the average number was 5.
That's staggering.
So our kids have autism, and on average, 5 additional diagnoses. That actually, I had to run that a few times because I didn't.
Yeah, you didn't believe that number when
I didn't
you first
think
got
it was 5, but then I looked, at
And
the
it really
numbers,
is.
and some people checked off as many as 9 and 10.
So when we talk about our kids having complex special needs, it really is complex.
It
And
is.
you take a kid to a doctor who is nonverbal or has communications challenges or
Mhm.
experiences pain differently. Like Cliff, when he was young, was undersensitive to pain, and he could like run into things, cut his chin
Yeah.
open, and then keep playing, and you'd be like, what? So even just being able to say to a doctor where in your body it hurts.
Yeah.
It's
So my son had very poor vision,
Mm.
and trying to get him glasses because he can't read a vision chart.
Oh gosh, and
Or
putting your face
sit
up against
for-
that thing.
yes.
Oh no.
And even when they're younger, there are babies that get glasses, but they need to sit for the drops. They need to. Could you imagine this kid who had all these sensory, who wouldn't wear a hat?
We're just out here trying to survive haircuts, right?
Yeah.
Let alone medical
New
tests.
shoes, forget
Oh,
that.
yeah.
That
Yep.
was and glasses. Are you kidding me?
Mhm. Yeah.
So actually, Alex,
Yes.
just go back up. I saw that question. Oh, Leslie Alex.
Yes.
So if you want to know, I got an eating disorder diagnosis actually at Surrey Place.
Mm.
I pushed for it.
Okay.
I met with Dr. Lowe. He's a developmental pediatrician there. He's not my son's
Mhm.
developmental pediatrician, and I can't remember who referred him to us there, but I would recommend him because he's very young, which means he's very open. So what I did, because I'm a researcher, I researched what the diagnosis should be, and I printed it out, and I gave it to him.
Right.
I gave him all the articles, and I said, this is what I think my son has, and he agreed with me and gave him the diagnosis.
Yeah.
So that's what you got to do. Sadly, that's what you got to do.
Raise your hand if you've trained your doctor. All right, boys and girls, that really brings us to the end of it. After that, what you get is our stunning bibliography, and I want to give a huge shout out and thanks to Maria Reluccio for helping me with that. She was amazing, and a thank you to Angela for helping with all the statistical analysis. I feel good about this report. I feel a little bit more confident going into the committee meetings this week, being able to say it's not just that I think I know what the OAC community wants, it's that I know. What's
saw
going on?
2 bunnies.
You saw 2 bunnies?
We saw 2 bunnies.
Clara
One
just
up in
got home.
One up in the corner.
And there were
and then
bunnies.
one by the park.
That's okay.
We
Breaking
saw-
news, guys. There
We
were
saw-
bunnies.
We saw not one, but 2 bunnies.
2 bunnies.
How
Oh, boy.
freaking cool is that?
That's pretty
I love
awesome.
it.
What do you have in your hands there?
I have chocolate.
That is
Can
a
you just
big
bring that back
chocolate
over
bar.
here?
You got to.
You just gotta show people.
Is that just for you?
I think it was David Byrne who sang it best when
Yes?
he sang Wild, Wild Life.
I thought you were gonna sing
Okay.
"Burning Down the House."
We're not sure.
Bunnies. Well,
We're not
it's
sure.
Oh, okay.
It's busy in here.
Okay, Bruce is home and now things are getting funny.
Oh,
All right.
oh, you're still on?
We're still live. Surprise!
Did they see the chocolate?
They did. Show them one more time.
Good job, Dad.
Yeah.
Real smooth.
Yeah, he's like
Yeah,
that.
that's me.
Okay.
Smooth.
Love it.
All right,
Okay.
guys, I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you for the thank yous. And
That's cute.
oh, bunnies! Faith gave bunny emojis.
Oh, thank you,
That's
Faith.
so awesome.
Very nice.
All right, guys. So go download that report and print it, and I don't know, throw it in an MPP near you. I mean, hand it to them and encourage them to read it.
Tie it to a brick. No, I didn't.
What?
I didn't say that either.
Facebook Lives are so much more fun with wine.
What did you
She said tie it to a brick. We do not condone that.
No,
kind of
it's
behavior
okay.
here.
It's okay.
Aw,
Just-
Tangerine, I love you too.
No, you know what you can do?
What?
Is you can just go sit outside of your MPP's office and read it. Who knows? Maybe they'll call the cops.
Maybe. Bring some children and seniors with you, then for sure they're coming.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
Oh my God. All right, guys. We're going to wrap it there. Please send me all of your positive energy over the next couple of days. I'm going to go and give it my best shot and fight for needs-based services for our kids. and we are not giving up. One last word about confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements. So I am simply not able to talk to you about what gets said in the meetings. However, I did fight. Oh, thank you.
This is an NDA drink.
This is an NDA drink. I did sort of push back for the right to be able to talk publicly after the report is issued, and you know, my commitment to you is that I'll do that. I'll do everything I can to push for as much transparency as possible. I think I'll pull a Bruce and at the first meeting recommend that at the very least the panel and the people organizing it release the agendas for our meetings. You should at least have the right to know what we're talking about. You can't know what we say, and it's not because governments try to be secretive, although sometimes they do. It's that if everything that we say goes public, then it makes things like brainstorming really difficult. People aren't going to be free to speak their mind if every single thing that they say gets out there.
And I imagine some of it is just for discussion, and you know, you don't want those loud voices screaming when it's nothing set in stone. It's just a discussion, and
Yeah.
I guess that would be difficult.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll see on the other side of that. I can still talk about all sorts of other things. So yeah, we'll see you again soon, and thanks for tuning in. And be
Wait,
good.
where's my hand? There it is.
Oh, there's your
Hello.
Be good to yourself. Be
Bye.
kind, and thanks for tuning in. Good night.
Yes.